Hey guys, Mr. Ridgway here. So for this particular video, we are going to be talking about probably one of the most transformative moments in all of human history, and that is the Neolithic Evolution. So to get the lesson started off, first make sure that you go down here, click on whatever block you need to do for your warm-up. Once you do that, then we can carry on with the rest of the lesson, okay? So what we're trying to achieve here is a couple things. Number one, we want to talk about the actual changes that occur because of the Neolithic evolution. And then once we do that, we're going to talk about some of the traits that are commonly attributed to this thing that the Neolithic evolution is going to make. And that is going to be civilizations. We'll try to give a couple examples as well. In the middle of that, I'm going to show you how you can play a board game to help you kind of review some of the things that we've been talking about the last few days. And then lastly, I'll talk about what your homework is going to be here at the end of this video as well. Okay, so let's talk about what this Neolithic evolution is going to be. Again, down here at the bottom, you can click when you're in presentation mode and grab the notes. Something to note here as well, no pun intended, is that if at any time you feel like I'm going too fast, please feel free to pause the video, stop, slow me down, all those good kinds of things, right? Make sure I grab subtitles here so that we are all good on that account. All right. So what we're going to be talking about here is the effects of this thing called the Neolithic evolution. Now, last class, we talked about things that Paleolithic humans were doing. So again, Paleolithic humans are hunting and gathering. Those are going to be the two things that they're primarily interested in. But what we're going to be talking about then is the change that happens between the Paleolithic period and the Neolithic period. And again, we're still in prehistory here. Writing has not yet been invented. Okay, so what happened right here? Something really, really important. And that is the discovery, or rather people learning how to farm crops. It is a massive transformation in human history. So you'll notice that I've crossed off the R on all of the slides that say revolution. And the first thing to understand about the discovery of farming is that it happens really, really slowly. Okay, it takes time for human beings to actually figure out that this can be a thing. So let's talk about why this is. Okay, first of all, what did this actual discovery look like? It probably happened by accident. Human beings had probably found some kind of food with scavenging that we'd eaten, kind of thrown away the remnants that we weren't going to eat, and then all of a sudden we realized, hey, something's growing there. But you need to understand that when we say evolution, like with slow, it happened really, really slowly. And this is for a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, you can't just switch all to farming all at once. It simply doesn't work like that. And the reason is because let's say that I plant corn in the ground, I can't just stop hunting and gathering and wait 6 months while the corn grows. I will starve. So people have to continue hunting and gathering. And not only that, let's say that I do decide to farm this new plant that I've discovered. What if it turns out to be poisonous and then it kills everybody? Mistakes are going to happen when the farming experiment begins. And there's going to be a lot of like 2 steps forward, 5 steps back kind of things going on. So the kind of other neat thing to know about farming as well is that when it happens around 12,000 BCE, give or take a few thousand, is that people learn how to farm independently from one another all across the world without talking to one another, which is pretty cool. But this is going to be a massive transformation in human history. Let's talk about why that is. So what are these changes? First of all, human beings go from food scavenging to food producing. And this is just such a big deal. The idea that I don't have to anymore depend on getting lucky to find food one particular day. I can make my own. It's reliable and sustainable on a certain degree, right? Now, I don't know about you, but my crops that I grow, because I'm such an extensive farmer, they don't walk around. So that means that human beings for the first time are going to be staying in villages, which is, again, a pretty big transformation considering that we're going from before, which we were nomadic, which means we traveled from place to place, and all of a sudden we're staying in one spot. The other thing, we're growing our own food now. Okay, we're staying in villages, which means that we're kind of sitting around. human beings do something when we have extra food on hand and we feel safe and secure, and that is we make more of ourselves. And just having the opportunity for human beings to increase their population from this is going to have some dramatic effects that are really, really, really important. Okay. Now, with more humans staying in villages with one another, okay, and with more food on hand, you can imagine there's going to be times where these human beings are not going to get along with each other. And that is where we're going to get the first governments that happen. Because again, people don't always get along. There's going to be disagreements about these things. So what's going to be some other effects? Well, let's say that Steve is a better farmer than Brenda. As Steve is, or Brenda is better than Steve. Doesn't matter. If one of the two is more effective, they get more corn, they get more money, and all of a sudden we start to see the first really large social class differences in human societies. And that's, again, a really, really big change. We get the first social class differences. And then the last one's a big one. So if we have more food on hand, we have more people, all those people don't have to farm. We don't need all of them to farm. In the United States today, only about 2.5% of people, give or take a few percent, are actually farmers, which means the 97.5% of us that aren't have something very, very valuable, and that is time. We can, for example, because I don't have to farm, I can sit here and I can make this video for you, right? We have people who can do what's called specialized labor or specialization of labor. And all that means is it's a fancy word that says people can do different jobs, because now all of a sudden they're not having to go out and, for example, for me to teach every single day, I don't have to kill a bison on my way to work to make sure that I eat lunch, right? So farming is a huge game changer in terms of time. And that means that we can go and invent silly things like computers and, carpet and whatever else I'm seeing that's around my room right now that I can utilize, right? Coffee, these kind of things, right? Now this chart, you don't have to write anything down from this. This kind of just summarizes what I just talked about. It's a massively big deal, okay? Farming is huge. It's so important. Now, the next slide. Okay, because you're going to probably be, if you're watching this video, doing this virtually, you're like, how can I play a board game virtually? Well, we've got a solution for that. Okay, so this board game, I'll explain the rules of it first and how you play it, kind of as I go along and show you. What you'll want to do immediately is go down here to the bottom and click Make Your Own. So let's go do that now. Okay, and you can see here it's opened up a PowerPoint for you. And how you play is pretty straightforward. What I would recommend doing is sharing this with somebody that you know that's also taking this class, or just playing with members of your family is always easy. And everything you need is up here. Okay, so what you'll need to do is go to File, okay, save your own copy, so that way you're not editing mine. And when you're ready, you can, okay, take your own copy, share it with somebody else, and then you can start to play. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, we've got our different pawns up here. Again, you can select different people that you would like to be. The game cards are here. We'll talk about those in a second. And then if you need to roll dice, they're right here. Okay. So how does the game work? Well, first of all, this game is all about discovering farming and establishing something that farming is going to let you have happen. And that is the first civilizations. So no matter what, your pawn is going to always start here on start. Makes sense, right? And you are, when you roll the dice, and I'll show you how you do that here in just a second. So let's go open up our dice link. Okay, it's just Google. And I'm going to select a number 6 dice. Okay, get rid of it on. And I'm just going to roll it. And you can see I got a 2, right? So I'm going to go back to here. Again, this would be my yellow piece, and I'd hop 2 spaces. I landed on Gather. So I'm going to go to my game cards. Okay, I'm going to open this link. And I'm going to go to my Gathering game cards. Now, people have asked me, like, how do I do these cards if they're online? I think the easiest way is just to go in order, so that way it's fair in terms of, like, which ones you pull. Now, what do you do with the cards? Well, you read them, and then you do whatever it says on them. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to pull a Gathering card, and we'll read what it does. So it says, you find a bush full of berries that are poisonous, minus 2 spaces. So in that case, I'm going to take my little yellow pawn and go back 2. Okay, you'll notice here is that as you keep going and as you make progress, okay, sometimes there are questions you have to answer and things like that, you'll notice that we're stuck in a loop. And hey, look, it's the Paleolithic age. The rule with this is pretty straightforward. You're stuck here going around and around and around and around. Okay? But let's say that I end up here on the gather space. How do I get out? Well, no matter what, okay, when you're in this Paleolithic age, let's say I roll a 16,000, you are always going to stop on the start space. And the reason is this. If you're on start and you roll a 6, you move down here. And that is because, congrats, well done, you are one of the very lucky people who has accidentally, probably, discovered farming. Okay, and you move right here. And then if you look down here, hey, look at that. We get a whole new bunch of spaces to play. Okay, also notice how this thing is designed. Okay, we still have hunting, we still have gathering spaces down here, even though we've discovered farming. And if you kind of do some critical thinking about why those two those two kinds are down here with the farming spaces, that should make sense. Okay, if you happen to land on this one, disease and famine strikes, which means all your crops die and then you starve. So you got to go back to here to the Paleolithic age. You will find this game, okay, again, the goal was to get all the way through the Neolithic age to when you establish civilization. You will probably find it immensely frustrating, okay? So I'm going to let you go ahead and start to play the game now and try it out. And when you're done, just replay the game. We'll kind of take a moment here and we'll talk about why this is like this. Okay, number one, why did I design this board game to look like this? Well, first, if you notice that you're stuck here, okay, think about how many different versions of human beings had to come before you that did the Paleolithic thing and died. Okay, or just were able to kind of pass on the status quo. Or think about how many versions of humans came before you that did discover farming, screwed it up and died. Or that one lucky one who made farming work, and that's where you come from. It's kind of pretty cool when you think about that, right? It's taken human beings about 7 million years to actually get this right. So again, like in terms of the genetic lottery, you want a pretty lucky roll, which is pretty awesome to kind of think about. Again, why did we have hunting and gathering spaces down here? Because you just can't switch over to farming all at once. Okay, again, your person living in 12,000 BCE would have starved. Okay, so I tried to kind of embed the critical thinking actually into this game while you were doing it. All right, when you're done, you can head on to our second mini lesson, which is what we're about to accomplish right now. Okay, so we're going to talk about civilizations. This one's really, really short. And why we're doing this is because civilizations are what farming allows human beings to create. Okay, so what are we looking at here? What similar characteristics can be found in cultures and civilizations regardless of where they're located? All right, so first I'd like you to write on your notes what comes to mind when you hear the word civilization. Maybe try to aim like 3-4 words, something like that. You could also draw pictures. That would also be fine. Okay, when you're ready, let's take a look at this definition that's been provided by a textbook. It says the Neolithic Revolution, evolution, right, led to the rise of civilization. A civilization is an advanced stage of human society marked by a well-organized government and high levels of culture, science, and industry. Okay, well, there's some bias in this definition. So I'm going to give you a chance. How is their definition of a civilization biased or at least troublesome? All right, take a moment, think about it, and then I'll give you the answer. And when you're ready, you can just unpause it. So we got some troubling words in here, okay? Advanced, well-organized, high levels. Okay, these are like words that we can easily toss around, but how do you measure advanced? Or maybe the better question is who decides what's advanced or well-organized or things like that. We have to be really, really careful of this because when oftentimes we're talking about, well, this person's civilized and this person's not civilized, there's often this implicit comparison that's being made between ourselves and somebody else. And again, this should kind of sound like the Nasarima activity that we did a few lessons ago. We have to be very careful about these words. And again, for people like the Egyptians, I'm sure in the context of their own time, they were civilized. But you could look back at the pyramids and be like, that's silly or dumb. Again, we have to be kind of careful about how we approach things with certain lenses. Okay. Again, this next slide here is just recalling the effects of the Neolithic Evolution. We're going to get civilizations out of farming. That's the big idea. And what are they going to have in common? CPR swag. Hey, if you want to come up with a better acronym than what I could, please try so. I was really struggling to. So here's what you got. Okay. So what are these things? CPR swag. They're the common things that most civilizations seem to share. Okay. Social classes. Social classes are pretty straightforward. They're the different kind of hierarchies that many societies get broken into. Okay, they look differently, but there's this idea that certain people are ranked differently in different parts of societies. So, for example, like knights, lords, serfs, kings, queens, emperors versus peasants, right? These things seem to kind of commonly pop up in human culture, in civilizations, that is. Public works. Public works are anything that you can use for free, or anyone can use for free. So, for example, roads, dams, bridges, anything that is considered to be a public good, okay, is considered to be a public work. Religion. This one is probably one as well with writing that we kind of have to put in parentheses, because not all societies are religious. So, for example, even though like the most common religion in the United States is Christianity, the second most common is atheism, which is no religion at all. Again, there's thousands and thousands of religions that you could use as an example. Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, go on and on and on, right? Specialization, there's that word again that means people do different jobs. Examples: butcher, baker, candlestick maker, right? Writing, lots of different kinds of writing. Now, like English is one kind of writing. The Egyptians will take wingdings and be like, this is hieroglyphics. And then we'll, at the same time, have the Inca who will take knotted strings and called quipu, and that's how they keep track of records. Is that writing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It kind of depends on how we define it, right? Arts. Lots of examples of arts. Anything that's a symbolic representation, so poetry, pottery, right? We can go on and on and on. Governments, communism, capitalism, socialism, dictatorship, monarchy. There's, kleptocracy. We can go on and on and on and on with all of these, right? And these just give you some actual examples that you might write down that I didn't mention, okay? Maybe I did mention some of them, not sure. All right. Just remember the big thing out of this, that civilizations appear in many, many, many different forms and styles. And not all civilizations even are going to settle down in villages. The Mongols, who are kind of the exception to everything, they never stop being nomadic. And again, we have to be careful about this word civilization. This person's civilized and this person's not. We have to be, again, that those things carry a lot of weight. All right. Now, there are, and I know it says on this slide, 4 major early civilizations. There's actually 5. So I'm going to update this here a little bit as I do this video. First of all, India and the Indus River Valley, Mesopotamia and the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, Egypt and the Nile River Valley, and China, the Yangtze, that's how you pronounce that, River Valley. Notice, all 4 in common here, river valleys. There's going to be a reason for that. It's easy to farm in these places. But there's one other group, or rather set of groups, that we should really mention that are an early civilization in here, and that is all the Aboriginal people of the Americas, because they do develop their own unique farming practices, such as like the Maya with slash and burn, or the Aztec with chinampas, the Inca with terrace farming. The difference between some Native American groups and these groups right here is that Native American groups will not utilize river valleys for the most part. There's a couple exceptions like the Mississippi, but well, we can get there. We can cross that bridge at another time, right? No river, pun intended. So let's talk about what your homework is. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to click right here for a John Green crash course video, and then over here is a copy of a worksheet. Now, where you turn this in is pretty easy. I'll just show you on my computer. Okay, you are going to go to Schoology. All right, and if I go and open up Schoology here, and if I just go to kind of our main Schoology page, you are going to see, I will just pull up our blocks here, that if I click on Cultural Hearts Unit 1, okay, I find today's date. Right under that, it says John Green Crash Course Worksheet. It says turn in your John Green worksheet here. Okay, and so we can click, okay, and grab this. You can do it and then turn it back into me. Okay, and that's pretty much your homework for today and the end of this lesson. So I hope you enjoy it. Good luck, and I will see you guys in the next video.